There are few film franchises that truly attempt to challenge our own perceptions of the world, to force us to look at ourselves in the mirror and examine the world we have constructed and the world we are constructing. Cinema as a medium has the power to reaffirm, to comfort, but it also retains the capacity to protest. Our world has divided itself among political party lines as we fruitlessly attempt to find greater purpose and belonging while slaughtering the gods of the old world. Truly, the gods have not perished. We have merely projected their properties onto contemporary images, tangible images, connectable images. In some respects, the world has grown in its religiosity. Continuing down this path has caused us all to no longer look at a work of art for what it is to the self or to the spirit. We instead search for a deeper meaning, which often never exists in the first place. Humanity no longer consumes media to consider the properties, perspectives, and arguments found within. We now hunger for affirmation of our increasingly insecure worldviews, as such philosophies are continually revealed as the hollow and meaningless ideologies that deep down we all know they are. Yet, accepting this fact would inevitably result in the understanding that each of us and everything connected to us is inherently meaningless. So we hide. We place our stakes in the ground and proclaim that we are right in our folly. For when death is ever present in the mind, the only hope of a mortal is that something greater may live beyond them. Therefore, art becomes another pawn in the game, a game with the reward of eternal life for the victor's creed. Even so, there are some artists who still pray for something greater. Some artists who believe in the connecting power of creation. Artists who understand the importance of using their medium as a forum for consideration of new perspectives rather than cynically accepting the great game. These are the ones who provide hope for the future of creativity. These are the ones who have birthed forth the boss baby family business. For in between the baby nudity and slightly incestuous undertones, there is a heavily political story, though this is not a confrontational story. Rather, the politics of the boss baby family business return to the days of consideration over messaging, and as such, I firmly believe the boss baby will become a cornerstone of political discourse in academia. Populism is defined by Cos Muda and Cristobal Rivera Kaltwasser in their work, Populism, a very short introduction, as first and foremost within the context of liberal democracy. Theoretically, populism is most fundamentally juxtaposed to liberal democracy rather than to democracy per se, or to any other democracy. Empirically, most relevant populist actors mobilize within a liberal democratic framework. That is to say, populism traditionally serves as an answer to liberal democracy specifically, rather than democracy as a whole. In attempting to understand the true meaning of populism, Muda and Kaltwasser complicate the argument by establishing that populism typically has radically different meanings in different parts of the world. In Europe, the term tends to have a connotation with xenophobia, whereas in Latin America, the term can have a connotation with economic mismanagement. Most often, populism is referred to in a negative tone in both the media and within the public square. How do these understandings of populism relate to the boss baby family business? The main villain of the film, Jeff Goldblum Baby, has a plan which heavily resembles populist revolutions throughout history. Populism, especially within Western nations, is often used to refer to a revolt of the people against the elite. Within boss baby family business, the revolt we see taking place is one of a lower class, babies, against a more powerful upper class, adults. As outlined within Anna Grzymala-Busse's argument against populism, populism requires a traditional good and evil mythos, with the revolting party positioning themselves as the heroic underdogs, going against tyrannic elites. This is exactly the kind of dynamic we witness Jeff Goldblum baby exploiting within the babies, as he teaches them to say no to the more powerful class of adults and take control of the world for themselves. Such action, however, as further argued by Grzymala-Busse, can only be inspired by positioning the group the populists are revolting against as the other, as less human, precisely because populists claim to represent the people. They have to define the people first, and that often means excluding vulnerable and marginalized populations, such as religious or ethnic minorities and immigrants. In the case of Boss Baby Family Business, the vulnerable group being attacked by the babies are adults. The babies cannot connect with or understand the position held by the adults, and so it is easy for them to be turned against their parents. This is why populism can sometimes result in the spread of hate against those outside the revolting group. But in order for the group which perceives themselves as lower to commence their populist revolt, they must be unified in their hatred for the perceived elite. For this to be accomplished, propaganda is essential. The first forms of propaganda we witness Goldblum baby delivering unto his baby revolutionaries is his speech where he begins by claiming that babies are smarter and more capable than adults, who have been in power for too long and have utilized that power to cause pain and disaster for babies. The babies have become convinced by Goldblum baby that adults are holding them back from achieving their perfect form, oppressing them so that they may not become equal or more powerful than the adults. However, such views must be reaffirmed not just in speeches, but in all aspects of life, for the perceived lower class to truly see themselves as underdogs. Further propaganda is necessary, and Goldblum baby engages in a popular form of propaganda among populist revolutionaries. Art. The entire winter musical at the end of the film, while on the surface appearing to be a celebration of the holiday season, contains messaging with the purpose of reinforcing the baby's belief that they are truly the oppressed group. The musical works to blame the effects of pollution and climate change not on the specific politicians, institutions, and corporations which have caused such phenomena, but on all adults, an oversimplification common in populist uprisings. Art is essential in politics and the propaganda utilized to reinforce such politics. A view outlined within Frank Mueller's work, Politics and Art. Art can be political without being critical, but it cannot be critical without being political. By being so overtly critical of the adult establishment, the musical Goldblum Baby School puts on is inherently political. Clearly, this work is political in terms of supporting the baby populist revolution against the adults, as the musical is heavily critical of the adult regime, while Boss Baby Family Business clearly contains a deep philosophical and political exploration of populist revolutions and how such movements can be sparked. What we have left to examine is what message the film chooses to send about populism, whether it is in fact in support of populism, staunchly against, or perhaps the Boss Baby takes a more complex view on populism. Within the political sphere, populism is a hotly debated topic, with different thinkers taking practically every position possible on the subject because of the obvious potential dangers of populism, in that it can result in an increase in hatred and discrimination. Grzymala-Busse believes that populism can be anti-democratic, that its emphasis on positioning one group as the other works to devalue that group's perspectives and beliefs, thereby destroying any potential for a truly equal and fair democracy. At the same time, however, Muda and Kultwasser believe that populism is neither fundamentally good or evil, depending on its electoral power and the context in which it arises. Populism can work as either a threat to or a corrective for democracy. This means that populism per se is neither good nor bad for the democratic system. According to Muda and Kultwasser, populism itself is more so a means to some end, that populism itself is not what is at fault for revolutions gone wrong. A populist revolution that sets out with the intention to tear down one group so that another may rise posits potential harm, whereas a populist uprising with a focus on equality and bringing awareness and power to a marginalized group could work to level the playing field and, if done right, potentially provide greater equality in the long term. It is my belief that this more complicated exploration of populism is the view employed within Boss Baby Family Business. At no point throughout the film is the act of populism or revolution itself portrayed as a negative force. Rather, it is the positioning of adults as the other, as a weaker, less worthy race the film takes issue with. When fighting against Goldblum Baby at the end of the story, the characters explain their objection to his view by describing how adults are not the other, that they and babies share in a symbiotic relationship imperative to the well-being of each other. Goldblum Baby is redeemed at the end of the film when he reconnects with his own parents and understands that they are not an enemy and were not holding him back. Therefore, I posit that Boss Baby agrees with Muda and Kotwasser's perspective over that of Grzymala-Busse, rather than choosing a political camp to align with. Boss Baby Family Business chooses to connect and communicate with all audiences by having an in-depth discussion on populism, exploring both the good and the bad. Indeed, our society desperately needs more works like Boss Baby Family Business, films which refuse to play the socio-political media game and instead focus on sincerity and open discussion. While the future of academia and public discourse continues to appear bleak, Boss Baby Family Business serves as a beacon of hope, revealing that a better future is not only possible, but attainable.